Welcome to the Blue Tweezers channel with myself, Alan, from the channel as usual. And today we've got a recorded playthrough of a scenario from Victory Games and Mark Herman's Flashpoint Golan, the 5th Arab-Israeli War. We're doing a one-turn scenario. This is known as Battle Day on the Golan, and we have the counters all set out ready to start. It's a fairly open deployment that you can put the counters in, but this is how I've set them out. Now normally this game is based on future Arab-Israeli battles, particularly of course with Lebanon, Syria and Jordan and Israel together. This actual scenario is a bit of a throwback, as it is representing battles that have already happened, skirmishes really, around the Golan Heights between the Syrians and the Israelis. So what have we got here? We have the various forces deployed. On the Syrian side we have the Syrian High Command HQ here, and then we have 3 mechanized divisions: the 5th Mechanized, the 7th Mechanized and the 10th Mechanized. On the Israeli side we have the Golan Infantry Brigade, Motorized Infantry Brigade here, these 3 counters here. The 96th Para Brigade, which is these 3 counters and a counter just underneath there. And then the rest of it is the Mech Armoured Division with its HQ. The Paras and the Motorized Infantry don't have their own HQ. They're commanded directly from the Northern Command HQ back here. The Mech Armoured Division here is deployed along the front line, and then also there is a reserve here as well. So how are we going to play this? It's a one-turn game. I'm going to go through the sequence of play once, of course. I have some dice here which are going to represent the number of capability points used by each of the HQs. So we have a 0 used by the two High Command HQs. They each have 9 capabilities each. We also have some D6s here which are slightly put to the side. 3 are here, which is going to represent the formation HQs, 5th, 7th and 10th Mech on the Syrian side, and the Mech Armoured Division on this side. As they've used nothing yet, I haven't put the dice with them, but they have 6 points each anyway, which matches nicely with the dice. On our log sheet, which I'll show here, we have the Syrian formations here. The 5th, 7th and Mech, 10th Mech here have a training level of reserve, so we don't know their troop quality yet. We'll roll when we need to. There is an extra Syrian counter up here, which is the 45th Special Forces Regiment, which is garrisoning the heights here on Mount Herman. The Israelis have the same. They have the Mount Herman Garrison Company here, sitting again in fortifications. Looking on the Israeli side here, we have the Mech Armoured Division, which is first line, so better than the Syrians. The Golan Infantry Brigade have a permanent troop quality of 4, and then the 96th Para Brigade actually has a training level of elite. The 45th Special Forces again has a permanent troop quality of 5. The initial air superiority level is Israeli 1, and the initiative is Arab +5, so their starting momentum is +5. The Israeli 1 air superiority level would normally give us dice rolls to see what aircraft are available. However, the scenario actually states that the only aircraft in the game are 2 airstrikes for the Israelis, which we'll roll for their composition. They could either be F4E Phantoms, Kafirs, or A4N Skyhawks. Now there is a further counter, the F-16, which is not used in the game because of course it's a historical rather than future conflict here. Right, so we should be ready to go here. So we start with a strategic cycle, the initiative and political offence phase. There are no political events to worry about. The Arabs have the momentum advantage, so therefore they have the initiative. The air superiority phase is already done for us. We're Israeli 1, so we don't have to worry about that. Now we come on to the jamming phase, where we make some dice rolls to try and jam HQs. Okay, so we start with the Syrian HQs attempting to jam the Israeli ones. So on the Syrian side, it's only the High Command HQ here that has the jamming ability. It has a range of 25 hexes, which of course will cover the entire battlefield here. And what it's going to do is it's going to attempt to jam the Northern Command HQ. So jamming succeeds on a 6 or less on a dice. So we're going to roll that. And a 1 is less than 6, so the Northern Command HQ is actually jammed. So this results in an HQ disrupt counter being placed with the HQ. Now that HQ is essentially out of action for the turn. So the disrupted HQ cannot use reserves in response to a set-piece battle or use airstrikes before set-piece battles, and airstrikes cannot be conducted during set-piece strikes. Now those two aren't particularly significant because that HQ is only running the paratroopers and the motorised infantry. It doesn't affect the Mech Armoured Division, but it is significant. Now that High Command HQ has actually activated, and it does cost 1 of its capability points to actually do, so that's 1 of its 9 used up. So as that HQ has used a capability, it is subject to reaction. So it can be detected. So the Mech Armoured Division HQ here could detect the Syrian High Command doing its activity. This Mech Armoured Division has a 12 hex range for its detection, so it's now going to attempt to detect the High Command HQ. So this roll will be subject to a modifier, which is the current air defence modifier for the air superiority level. The air defence modifier for the Mech Armoured Division is a 1, and we're looking for an 8 or a 9. A 5 plus 1 is 6. The High Command was not detected. So on the Israeli side, there is only 1 HQ which could do jamming, which is actually the Northern Command HQ, but that HQ is disrupted, so that's the jamming phase over. For the rest of the strategic cycle of the turn, we just have the reinforcement phase and the replenishment and reorganisation phase. So the reinforcement phase, we have no reinforcements for this game. The replenishment and reorganisation phase, we check supply status for all units in play, and if they're in command and in supply, units can replenish their ammunition. Everything's in supply here, but nothing really needs replenishment at this time. So that's the strategic cycle over. So now we're on to the operations cycle. The initiative player, which is the Syrians, has to select a starting formation to activate, and they're going to pick the 10th Mechanised. All the others are put into a cup for chip pull later on in the turn, but we'll start with the 10th Mechanised. The 10th Mechanised is here. Now, why have I picked that? If you remember from the intro, first thing is in the movement phase is any units in a zone of control have to either hold, withdraw, or conduct a set-piece battle. Now that's the only time in the activation that a set-piece battle can take place. Now, as you can see here, the 10th Mechanised, of all the border areas, this is the only one where there are Israeli units adjacent in zones of control, so therefore the only one where a set-piece battle could take place. So we want to start with that. General idea here is with the Syrians is to send the 10th mech forward. Hopefully we will take this Tel here, Tel Hazareka, and possibly go beyond. We'll see, with some exploitation maybe from these other units down here. and that should take the attention of the Mech Armoured Division if it gets to activate early, which will then push it back, which will give these other formations a chance to try and take further territory. The victory here is for the Syrians to take either a tell or a town in the Golan Heights area. So any of the black blobs or these little spiky circles. That's the idea. Quneitra is one of those because it is a black blob, and it's counted as being in the Golan Heights rather than the treaty zone. So we're starting here with the Syrians here conducting a set-piece battle. So we've determined that these two hexes will be doing set-piece battles, this hex into here and this hex into here. But first we decide if we're going to do any set-piece strikes, and the defender whether there are going to be any reserves. So for set-piece strikes we are going to use this rocket battalion here, the 10th Mech Rocket Battalion, 4 hexes, and it's going to attack here, strike here. So we will look on the strike results table here. We have an artillery strength of 4, so that gets us on the B line here. There are no dice roll modifiers to apply except set piece strikes. The defenders get a +1 because they can kind of see the strike coming, if you see what I mean, and take cover. So there's a +1 on the dice. We are looking for results which are as low as possible on the dice. We got a 5, that becomes a 6, and if we look on the B strike rating 3 to 5 artillery strength line, we can see that a 6 gives us no result, but we do have an ammo depletion issue. So are we doing any other strikes? Well, before we do that, there can be a reaction to that strike by Israeli artillery on counter battery. So what you do is you effectively draw a kind of line along here, and we see whether any other artillery units have a line of sight to any part of that line where they can calculate the incoming artillery and work out where the originator is. So our counter battery reaction can be done via this parachute artillery unit here, which has 3 hex range, the Gurian artillery battalion here, 1, 2, 3, 4 hex range, and also here we have the Mech Armoured Division's artillery reserve here, which is 5 hex range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We take all of those values, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a counter battery strike onto that rocket battalion of 8. We look at the strike results again, but there is no modifier here. And we have a 7. A 7 on the 8 line, the 6 to 9 line. A 7 becomes a 4. So that's a 4 action. But what that does do is that makes all that artillery out ammo depleted. So we put our ammo depleted markers on. So we have a morale check for 4. So we need to check the troop quality of the 10th Mechanised Division. So currently the 10th Mechanised Division is a reserve quality. So we look on the troop quality table, and under the reserve line, a roll of dice to see what the troop quality is. It'll either be a 4 or a 5. We rolled a 3, which means it's a 4. So we mark that down on our chart, our log here. So we've determined that the 10th Mechanised is a troop quality of 4. So we rolled a 4 on the strikes table, strike results table. So if the troop quality is less than the number, there's damage. So there is no damage as it's equal to. So that counter battery strike failed. Note that there's no restriction, even though the HQ is disrupted, on counter battery by these units. Okay, that's the only strike I really wanted to do. We have some more artillery here, but I want to put those in as combat support. Now, during this whole turn, all the HQs can spend a capability point. So I'll hold the Syrians back. We could spend one for ammo replenishment for the rocket, but I think we'll hold back. We might want to use the point there in a different manner. As the Mech armor division isn't really going to be included in this set piece battle, and for this activation really, I think we will go ahead and use one of Mech's points to replenish this artillery battalion at this point. These can't be undepleted because the Northern Command HQ, which is its parent HQ, is disrupted, so they aren't getting their ammunition back at all, I'm afraid. Alright, so we've had our strikes. Now for reserves. So with reserves, either the unit being attacked has to be the same formation or as the reacting unit, or the reacting unit needs to be independent. So the Mech armor division can't really take any part of this because it's a different formation. And also because of HQ disruption for the Northern Command, the independent units, which is the Parachute Brigade and the Infantry Brigade, also cannot be used as reserves because its HQ is disrupted. So there are no reserves coming for this. Okay, the last thing to do before we actually do the battle is, are there going to be any airstrikes coming in? So I think we will use one of our Israeli airstrikes to pinpoint an attack on this hex here. So we firstly roll for the airstrike aircraft type. And a 7 would be an F-16A, but in this scenario it becomes an A4 Skyhawk. So we have our A4 Skyhawk here, which is a strike rating of B. And we will start him in the Mishmar Hayarden airbase here, and he will move pretty much directly towards the 10th Mechanized. Okay, so as he's coming through, that airstrike is automatically detected. It's in the open, of course, and air defense can be done. Now, air defense artillery here is a capability of HQs, but doesn't use a capability point. So our Syrian High Command has an air defense artillery range of 36, so he can spot him coming many miles off. Also, the Mech divisions here also have a 10 hex range. So with possibly the exception here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, all three and the High Command can fire at this point. So we will use the High Command first, and that's got a rating of 3. So we'll roll against that to see if we can stop the airstrike. So we need to roll against a 3. It's Israeli 1 level for air superiority, so the Syrians get no advantage. There's no modifiers to that, so it's straight on the 3. And a 5 is a miss. We'll then use the 10th Mechanized itself, its HQ. A 9 is a miss. The 7th Mechanized HQ, a 7 is still a miss. For these HQs, the armour and mech, it's only a 1 or a 0 which will succeed. Finally, the 5th Mechanized. No, lots of 7s there. So the aircraft has actually got through and is able to strike the hex. We have the A4N here, which is a B strike rating, and also has a -1 on its strike dice roll as well. So we are in a clear hex, so there's no terrain modifier here. So we'll roll on the B strike rating line with a -1 on the dice. A 4 going to a 3, that's a pretty good roll. That comes up with a strike result of 7. So 7 is actually greater than 4, which is the troop quality of those 2 units. So those 2 units are actually hit, and they will be disorganized and flipped over, and the airstrike goes away, and that's one of the 2 available this turn. So that's a pretty good result there. So we go ahead with this attack here. So we're 14-3. We are going to add in this artillery brigade, 6 hex range. Just going to add 7 to, this is combat support as opposed to a strike. So 7, 14, 21. Now because this is providing combat support as an artillery, counter battery is available again, and I think we will again activate our replenished artillery unit. Actually we can't. These have fired for this actual activation, so therefore they can't actually take part again. Do we have some more artillery which could help? We have another one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, so this guy will react. That's a 3 on the strike table. A 0. 0 is very good. That's a 10 result. So of course the troop quality of 3 here for that unit is much less, so it's flipped over. However, it's also doubled. But that is only for actual battle result itself. So just for the strike result, it's turned over. As you can see, it's now just got a value of 1 in brackets. So that's effectively silenced that artillery brigade. As it's a 10, there is no ammo depletion for the Israeli side here. Firing here actually can have an effect from other units here, which can see the line here. So let's see if we can react to that. I'm not entirely sure we want to, really. The damage is done, and it's only a small artillery unit, so we won't do any counter battery for that. So actually we're down to just 14-3 here, and the anti-tank dishes surprisingly don't have any particular effect on combat. However, the tell that they're on will be the actual line on the combat chart that we'll use. So if we look at the battle resolution table and we look at the tell level, that's the 3rd one down, and we're looking at 14-3, we're looking at a 4-1. So 4-1 on hill and tell is the middle of the bottom part of the table, middle column there. So we will run in. We can't get any help from the artillery there, as it's the 96 power artillery, as it's ammo depleted from that counter battery it tried. So we just roll on that table. A 4, pretty average result. On the 3-4 line, for normal units, that would be the paratroop unit, we have a 5/7. So for the Israeli units, it's a 7 to compare. Now we haven't checked what the 96 paratroop troop quality is. We do that now, and on the troop quality table they are elite. So let's roll to see what it is. And on a 9, they are actually troop quality 7. So they do not suffer any losses. Just marking 7 as their troop quality. So they suffered no losses. Now the 10th Mech units here are disorganized. So we look on the 2nd row here, on a 4. The attacker is on a 4. Their result is 4. Their troop quality is 4. So again, nothing actually happens. There was an attack there that actually had 0 results. Just noting here that the HQ of the 10th Mech is on the same hex as the artillery unit, but it doesn't suffer anything from the counter battery strike that came in. So the result of that is that that set piece battle had no result. So then we move on to this one here, which I think will be much less supported. I think we'll hold the Israeli airstrike. I think we'll hold any artillery as well from this battle. It's in the rough, so we'll use the rough set piece battle resolution line. And we have 15 and 14, so that's 29 versus 3. So the rough battle resolution table column goes up to 5 to 1, and that's certainly 5 to 1. So 5 to 1 plus on rough, we're on the maximum table, and we roll the dice. A 5, again, fairly middling, and we have, for a normal unit, which the paratroopers are, they're all normals actually, the attacker suffers a 4 result, and the defender suffers a 7. So again, both troop qualities are equal to the results, so nothing happens. Wow, so all that armour and mechanised power has essentially bounced off those paratroopers due to their troop quality being so high. So well done for the paratroopers there. Now we've resolved what these units have done, because they're in ZOCs, we have the other units that we can work on. So we have these 2 units down here. There was a thought that we could bring this forward if we had a breakthrough. We don't have one, but what I want to do is to bring this unit. It has 6 movement points, or 6 engagement points. Moves 1 to there, and we don't want to use the highway rate if we can possibly avoid it, because we can be struck. However, there's not a lot to strike here. There's ammo depleted, so we'll be brave and we'll use the highway movement rate. Actually, we don't need to, so we can use the road at 1 operations point per hex without using that. So let's move across to here. We are in open terrain, however, so that we could be detected if we want to be. The Israelis could pick on that unit. We haven't got a lot that's in range that's not ammo depleted, so it's going to just move through 1, 2, 3. It now does have to stop here, and it could conduct a meeting engagement, although as an armoured battalion against a motorised infantry task force, that doesn't look like a fair fight, so we won't. With the small recon unit, I think we can essentially just leave it there to guard the border. So that's the 10th Mechanised activation. However, there are still HQs could do something with their single capability point here. Note that only the Mech Armoured Division HQ can react now, because we've got the Northern Command HQ disrupted, and I don't think there's anything for them to do. On this side, the Syrian High Command could do some replenishment. However, also the Mech division could do that as well. So we are going to use a capability point here to restock the 10th Mech Rocket Battalion. That function again could be detected. Again, I'm not really sure that we need to do anything for that, and we don't want to do any capability beyond that. 7th Mechanised and 5th Mech will hold our capability points, I think. That is now the activation over, and so we return to the cup, and we will see who is next in activation. We have the Mech Armoured Division coming in. So that's the video for the 10th Mech activation. join me next time to see what the Moshe Armoured Division is going to do in reaction. Bye for now.